I'm going to start with a brief introduction. My name is William King. I've been in the fire pump controller side of the business for 29 years. Today, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to actually try to walk you down the path. Preventive maintenance is something that you all are used to if you've been in this industry. However, you may not be aware of what's required on the controller side of the business. So, it's always been tricky for me on how to start a presentation. Sometimes you don't know where to jump in or where to dive in because you're unsure of people's position in the market. For me, the easiest place to do that is with the code. I'm going to start with the why. There are, as consumers, there are 5 questions we tend to ask ourselves before we make a purchase. We want to know the what, when, where, why, when. Those are typically what happens. Today, I am going to give you the why so that when you go back to wherever you're from, if somebody wants to know about preventive maintenance on the controller, you can tell them why. And when you leave here, you'll go straight over to the booth to see a demonstration, and that'll give you a lot of the other W's where you can answer those questions. So again, today I'm going to move through with the code. I start with the code. I give you the why you need preventive maintenance, and then I'll give you a solution to everything that I'm talking about here. We will have a Q&A session after I finish. This presentation is pretty short, but I don't know if anybody will have anything, but I'll do my best to answer that. I'm not necessarily the expert on NFPA 25, but if I can't answer it, I know who to go to get the answer. All right? So, NFPA, we all know, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone knows the National Fire Protection Association is an international nonprofit organization. They write hundreds of standards, including NFPA 20, which is the book you see on the screen now, NFPA 25, and NFPA 70, which is the National Electrical Code. A lot of the references I'm talking about are kind of based out of the U.S., but luckily for NFPA 20, or NFPA is accepted and adopted around the world. Now, the thing to remember with NFPA 20, it's not necessarily required in every country, but it is the basis for almost every control system or every part of the fire pump system. It defines the performance of the fire pump, the driver, which will be your engine or your electric motor, and it also defines the operation and the design of the fire pump controller itself. It is a minimum standard, which means that in your respective areas, they may go above and beyond NFPA 20, which is totally fine, but this is going to give you the basis of the design. It is why I think NFPA 20 is so important, because it does put everything in one book. If you need to answer a question, you can usually find it in the NFPA 20 manual. All right, so as stated on the previous slide, NFPA 25 is also one of those standards. It is what defines the inspection, testing, and maintenance of the fire pump system. Chapter 8 kind of covers what we do from a controller standpoint. And as with NFPA 20, it is the minimum standard. I need for you to remember that. Minimum standard means that it's not where you have to only do what's in NFPA 25, and it's just the basis. You could go above and beyond that if your locale requires it, but you got to start with what the basic foundation is. NFPA 25, Chapter 8.1. Let's dive into some of these details. It basically talks about the minimum frequency for inspection testing of this fire pump system and maintenance of the fire pump system. 8.1.2 is a table that's in NFPA 25, and they specifically say you need to work with the manufacturer with regards to this table. Are we certain our clients and our customers are following NFPA 25? So again, it is a standard. UL and FM will list and approve, controllers and other parts of this system based on, do you meet this standard? Are your customers meeting that standard? We're not certain. We don't know. And it kind of drives other information in this market because we don't know, so we have to improve the system. And my goal here is to start educating the market on NFPA 25 and preventive maintenance from the controller standpoint. The chart that's in 8.1.1.2 is kind of generic. When it comes to the controllers, if you look here, you see all of the intervals that are required for different parts of the fire pump system, but with the controller, it just says per the manufacturer. Is there anyone in here that doesn't work with me now directly who can tell me what is the preventive maintenance program for any fire pump controller? Does anyone know? All right. That's good. That's actually good for me. It's bad for our industry, but good for me. Because I've interviewed a lot of people, and over time what I've found is no one knows. They have their own individual programs that they follow, but no one is really sure of what's required by the controller manufacturers. We want to change that. The absence of recommendations from the controller companies is part of the problem. We need to, from a manufacturer, start pushing this information. And our industry tends to be more reactive than proactive. So if you think of the word preventive, it is to make sure something bad doesn't happen down the line. How do you do that? You don't want to wait until that system breaks down, but that's what we typically do. We wait until there's a problem or we have that alarm, and then we react and get there. You pay expedite fees. You have to pay 5 times what you normally would to get somebody on site. A preventive maintenance program should help with some of that, because you will proactively be replacing parts that we feel will fail along the way, or most likely to fail. So chapter 8.5, which is the reference that the chart 8.1.2 was sending you to, is kind of straightforward. Remember, my goal here is to answer your question as to why do I need preventive maintenance. It is in black and white in NFPA 25. A preventive maintenance program shall be established. It doesn't say should be, could be. It says it shall be established. Yet no one has done it. No one has established a program for the fire pump controller. That to me is the most important message I need for you to take from this. It is that there is no preventive maintenance program for the controller. I know I need one to comply with the standard. How do I get it done? I'll help you with that a little later, but you now know the why. It is because it is required by code. Now, there are other parts of our industry who have very well established programs. Clark Engine, for example, that I have up here, they have a great maintenance schedule. But think about why. It's an engine. It has batteries. It has other fluids that have to be maintained, have to be changed. You need to do that, because guess what? If you don't maintain your engine, what happens? You burn up the engine eventually. I was talking to a customer this week at this show right here. They got a call about a fire to an engine. Not sure what brand, but when they got there, they noticed that the batteries had been maintained or changed in 5 years. They don't know what happened from there. They're trying to get the data now to try to follow what went wrong with that system. But it's very important to know it wasn't being maintained. Someone has to be held accountable, and that particular facility got into some serious trouble because they hadn't been maintaining the system. It is required to have a PM program for your controller. You've got to have it. You've got to start pushing that. I'm asking you all as colleagues in this industry to push that to your customers, no matter where they exist in the sales channel. Everyone should know you've got to have a preventive maintenance program. And if we think about it, the controller, if we look at the fire pump system rather, like a human, as a human body, you've got the pump, the heart, correct? You've got the motor or the engine, which is your muscles. It kind of drives everything. You've got the veins and your arteries for the sprinkler system, but you've got to take care of the brain, which tells everything when to start, when to stop, the alarms. When there's a problem in the pump room, everybody walks in there, they don't go straight to the pump or the engine, they go to the controller that's setting off the alarm. This is why you need to maintain your fire pump controller. So, NFPA 25 and section 8.6 is very general in nature. It talks about certain things like replacing certain parts and what you should do after you replace those parts. So the greatest example would be the transducer, which I know you can't see that. I have a hard time seeing it and I'm right here. But I highlighted the transducer, in which case it says, if you adjust or you replace the transducer, you need to automatically start and stop that pump 6 times under no load. A lot of people may not know that, but it is required. NFPA 25 has been around for quite some time, and I don't think anyone knows that. I know electricians may go into the pump room, change out the transducer, turn it back on. If there's no alarm, they walk away. That's not correct. They should be utilizing NFPA 25, contacting the controller manufacturer, which is what they recommend. The committee was very specific about that. Always work with the controller manufacturer, because their information is the base. It's generic in nature. But if the controller manufacturer tells you you need to start it 20 times, you need to follow that. Because if something happens or something goes wrong, we know who's going to be held responsible for it. Work with your controller manufacturer, whomever that is, to get that done and utilize NFPA 25 in conjunction with that. So, key takeaways so far. You got to remember NFPA 25 is the minimum standard for testing, inspecting, and maintenance of the fire pump system. Our clients are typically reactive versus proactive. A PM program is required and input from the controller manufacturers is needed. These are easy bullets to remember, right? And I need for everyone to stay on top of this because you're going to need it going forward. Let's talk about why you want the preventive maintenance program. There is a growing concern that fire pump systems are not being properly maintained and tested. I have a colleague, we've had conversations about this, and I've worked in a lot of different places in this industry with the controller company. I've worked in manufacturing, the quality department, the field service department out around the USA, repairing these systems. Eventually in sales, and now I'm on the other side of the business with this FirePro Care solution, working on preventive maintenance. You have to understand when that system goes in place, the fire pump is something that's in the basement, it's dark, it's away. As long as there's no alarm, no one's going to pay attention to it. That's a problem. You hope it never runs. If it does run and there's a catastrophic reason for that, the building is on fire. However, without that preventive maintenance program, it may not be ready to operate when necessary. Proper maintenance is critical to help ensure constant system readiness at all times. You need this PM program. You've got to have something in place for the controller as well as the pump and the driver. You've got to have that. So we know that there's an issue because Factory Mutual, they do have a booth here. You may want to stop by and talk to them. There is a standard that has recently been introduced that talks about remote testing. When asked why that is happening, part of it is because the systems are not being properly tested, inspected, and maintained. So this all ties together. The preventive maintenance program, remote testing, all of it is about driving the industry a certain way when it comes to the code because it's necessary to have the system ready at all times. Preventive maintenance is a proactive approach to the upkeep of the fire pump system. We all need it. The code has always evolved over time. It led to a better system. It led to safer systems. It led to some things that helped us all do our jobs better. Just as when it comes to controllers, as they evolved, I remember back when this wasn't the safest thing. If you started up or worked on fire pump controllers in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, whenever we needed to check the amperage or the voltage on a controller while the motor was running, that was done opening the door and sticking your hand in there to take those measurements. The code evolved. They stopped that, and sometime around 2000, they said you've got to be able to do that externally. You need to be able to see the volts and amps externally. So again, that is the example I like to use on how the code evolved to give us a better controller that is safer and more reliable. Now, these smarter control panels, the safer controllers, and this better tracking and data collection has led to these controllers utilizing things like UI, user interfaces, touch screens, all these nice, neat things that we see in our day-to-day lives. Electronics, it's all been driven by electronics. Although electronics are very good for us, they actually allow us to make things smaller, lighter, faster as far as getting data in and out. They also have weaknesses. They're always powered. In the old days, and I say old days, I know I look like I'm 35, but I'm not. But in the old days, it was you had a relay in that controller that would only be powered when it was called to run. With these electronic boards, they're always powered. So guess what? The first thing that's going to fail if there's an issue. That board, that's always powered. That'll be the first thing to go. So you should maintain it. The preventive maintenance program is driven to replace those parts in certain intervals so that your system is always ready. These advances have led to the development of a preventive maintenance program designed specifically for the fire pump controller. And that, my friend, is where FirePro Care comes in. I'm the director for FirePro Care, which is part of the global or the group Tornatech Incorporated. Group Tornatec owns 4 brands: Tornatec, Fire Troll, Tornatec International, and now Fire Pro Care. Fire Pro Care kind of works with all of those brands at the moment. There are ideas to incorporate other stuff down the line, but the system will notify users on when they should replace these parts, when they need to go in there. It also has some other enhancements where they can keep up with the service history of the panel. They'll be able to work directly with the authorized service provider to get that part shipped and bought immediately and on time and to the right place. It also gives you a control of part where you'll be able to see where all of your units exist and where they are. It is a great system. It is a tool. Remember, Fire Pro Care is a tool that's going to allow you all to have a better fire protection system and allow you to be proactive in the maintenance of your fire pump system. Now, stop by either of the Tornatec or Fire Troll booths today, booth 939 and 339 for a quick demonstration. It is limited in nature, but again, we're introducing it at the greatest show when it comes to fire protection in the USA and Canada, but we launch in September of this year. Stop by for a demonstration, ask questions. I'll be floating around. I have two other assistants who are actually very, very detailed and know a lot about this program, but you actually will all learn a little something and hopefully become more interested in what we're doing here with regard to Fire Pro Care. All right. With that being said, I will conclude. Thank you again for attending. I am very impressed with the people that showed up. Stop by one of the booths for a demonstration. Thank you.